Well, good morning, everybody. Y'all get a nice up-close view of it, but do y'all want to see? This was my outfit that I wore to Dragon Con a few weeks ago. I can't believe it was actually like 2 weeks ago, 2 weekends ago now. Time is just flying. But, I had an incredible experience there that I wanted to share. And more than the usual incredible experience that I have at Dragon Con, I had a truly eye-opening experience. So let's start at the beginning. What is Dragon Con? For those that don't know, Dragon Con is a giant convention in Atlanta that happens on Labor Day weekend, from Thursday before the actual weekend all the way to Monday on Labor Day. It is a 5-day giant nerd convention in downtown Atlanta that is across 5 hotels. The America's Mart. Basically, they close out that part of Atlanta with about 80,000 nerds from literally all over the world. And I say nerds, but really what I mean is multimedia. If you are a book person, they have authors, they have workshops teaching you how to write books. If you like movies, TV shows, podcasts, anime, graphic novels, just about anything entertainment-based, there's something for you there. And I've been going there for about 7-8 years now. But I will be honest with you. I don't usually go with God in mind. Now, I'm not going to like debauchery and sin, but I'm just going to have fun. I'm not thinking, how am I going to bring Jesus to Dragon Con? That's just not really what I've been doing. But this year would be a little bit different. So as most of you know, I have a web series called Dirty Christianity. And with Dirty Christianity, I've been trying to think of video topics. And with Dragon Con coming up and having 80,000 nerds and dorks and geeks and people that like entertainment, I had never really seen that much overt Christian presence there. And so I wanted to ask a question. How does our faith impact the content that we consume, the entertainment content that we consume? And so I went on the Dragon Con Facebook page and I posted that question. And I expected 5 people to respond because, like I said, I hadn't seen that much overt Christian presence. But that's not what happened. So we'll get to that in a second. So why did I ask that question? How does our faith impact the content that we consume? Well, initially, I asked it kind of as a pick your brain exercise. I was curious what people thought. I was like, I'm going to Dragon Con anyways. I've got this web series on Christianity that might be fun. So it's just kind of started as an experiment. Not everybody agrees on how our faith should impact the content that we consume and watch. And so I was just curious to see the diversity of thought of like the 5 people who were going to respond. And a little bit of it was a leap of faith. I felt that, hey, this is a good opportunity. Dirty Christianity can appeal to these people. So for those 5 people that commented, I may get 5 more followers. It was going to be a great end result. But that's not the response I got. The response I got was not 5 people. It was about 500 people. Now, not all of them wrote comments, but the likes and reacts and engagement was about 500. The people that actually wanted to speak with me at Dragon Con was about 50 people, which still is a lot of people to do an interview with. And of those 50, I managed to actually get to talk to about 15 to 20 of them because Dragon Con is it's a chaotic, crazy weekend. So I managed to do about 15 to 20 interviews there. And those 15 or 20 interviews, each one was between 30 minutes and 2 hours long. So the reaction that I got just completely blew me away. And the diversity of thought was incredible. I spoke with Republicans, with Democrats, with white people, with black people, with Hispanic people. I spoke with a Jewish person. I spoke with gay people. I spoke with straight people. I spoke with a huge selection of people, all, with the exception of the Jewish person, identifying as Christians, all with entirely different thoughts and perspectives on things. And I'm not going to go into too much detail on what all of the thought was. You're going to have to wait for the video that comes out either late this week or early next week to get that. But the main takeaway from this weekend was excitement. I cannot tell you how excited these people were to talk about two of their great passions in life, fun and God. It was infectious. They could not stop talking in some cases. Like I said, some of these interviews were 2 hours long because we enjoyed the same thing, and we were just going and going and going. And I remember this one interview I started. We were both standing, and I was like, I'm not expecting this to take more than like 10 minutes, so we'll just stand here. It's a busy section. So 2 hours later, we were both sitting on the floor, trading information and passing like notes back and forth. It was an incredible experience, and the people were their attitude was infectious. And if you think about it, it makes sense. What do people like talking about? Things that they enjoy. And oftentimes, God is not particularly in that box. We have our entertainment box. We have the box where all the fun stuff is, the movies we like, the books we read, the shows we watch, and then we have a box for God. And that's not that, to say that we like keep them separated, but we go into that box, and when we're Wednesday night or on Sunday, or maybe if we see something, we're like, I'm going to pray about that. I'm going to go into the God box and pray about that. Or, guy cut me off in Atlanta traffic. I'm going to be nice. I'm going to go into the God box, and I'm going to be nice. But we usually keep them separate. And what I realized is that there is an incredible desire for, I would almost call it permission, to allow God into our fun box, into the box of entertainment. We don't need to keep God in his own little box that we go to. We are supposed to allow him to spread throughout us and be a part of all aspects of us. Our fun does not have to be separate. In fact, I would argue, after my experience this past weekend, that if we allow God to spread throughout us internally and personality-wise and interest-wise, it adds greater depth to our interests. Because if we can add God, our salvation, and our belief system into our entertainment, that adds a whole new level of depth. And if we can allow our entertainment, the things that we find that are fun and engaging, into God, it creates a greater interest in God. So where we usually keep these things separate, even if we do it subconsciously, by combining them, it creates such a new perspectives on things that people could not hold and contain how much they wanted to talk about. And that is something that we can all get excited for. We can get excited to let God into all of our lives, throughout our lives. And I hate to say it, I really do hate to say it, because I love Trinity and I love church, but God oftentimes isn't talked about with excitement. If somebody's a new person in the faith, oh yeah, we'll tell you all the great things God has done. But outside of that, I see God used a lot as kind of throwaway comments. Not even negative, just, how you doing? Well, God's good. That's about all I can say. There's very rarely this excitement for God. But if we can add a new perspective and allow God to work throughout our lives and add our interests and the things that do excite us and combine them with God, that is a whole new imagining of things. So, for closing thoughts, because this is just a short thing, I learned so much this past weekend. Like I said, I had like 15 to 20 interviews. I kind of lose track of them. I spoke with everybody from lawyers to PhD students to a lady who was 2 days after her divorce and was just there to kind of celebrate and cut loose because she had a crazy experience. I spoke with people who were eager. I spoke with people who were nervous. I spoke with people who literally, in one case, were like jumping up and down with excitement to talk about that. I spoke with people who weren't really sure what approach I was taking to it, and they were kind of cautious. I spoke with everybody that I could, and I learned so much, and I learned a greater appreciation for other people's stories, because I have a very, I'm not going to lie, I have an interesting God story in my life. And that's kind of the standard that I measure a lot of people by. My family were missionaries. We were refugees. We grew up overseas. We've been evacuated 5 times. We've been homeless. We have been through almost literally hell and back. But man, my story pales in comparison to some of these people that I spoke with. And they were nerds just like I was. They were geeks just like I was. And they love God just as much as I do. And it was amazing to see them. Another thing I learned was to trust a little bit more in God. As I said, I expected 5 people. I did not expect the incredible response that I got. And in hindsight, it kind of makes sense. It makes a lot of sense to combine the things that we love with the God that we love in a deliberate way. And I was very humbled in my time at DragonCon. And finally, I learned to be excited because there are so many people out there who are eager to spread their love of God, to share their love of Marvel and Star Wars and how they think that God relates to those things. The moral lessons they take away from Harry Potter and how that relates to their walk with God. There's so much excitement. We just have to give people permission to share it. And that's something that may require us to think a little bit differently about how we talk about this stuff. But with new ways to share, it is a new world, and there's so much eagerness in people to share their story. That was my DragonCon. For 5 days, I did almost nothing that I wanted to do normally other than sit and interview with people. And it was the greatest experience that I've ever had there. And so I wanted to share that with you because in this building, we have our story and we have the Trinity family. But I was truly reminded from this giant international nerd convention that there are literally millions, actually literally billions at this point, of Christians all over the world, and they want to share their story. We've just got to give them permission to do it in a way that they can relate to. Thank you.